The first thing they stole from Emily Carter was not her name. It was the expectation that anyone would bother to learn it. On the upper deck of the Whitaker Horizon, a luxury yacht floating along the Hudson River, she moved between white linen tables and champagne glasses as if she were part of the furniture. The Manhattan skyline glittered behind the guests, all gold windows and silver water, while a string quartet played beneath soft ivory lights. Men in tailored jackets spoke about beachfront acquisitions. Women in silk dresses laughed with careful little tilts of the head. No one looked at the waitress unless a glass was empty. Emily wore a crisp white blouse, a black skirt, and comfortable shoes chosen for a 12-hour shift. Her blonde hair was pulled back with a wine-red ribbon that had once belonged to her mother. It was the only bright thing about her uniform. She carried trays with steady hands and a calm face. Though her daughter was asleep 2 decks below in the staff room with a folded sweater for a pillow and a low fever that made Emily's heart count every minute. "Do not mind her," a woman near the champagne tower said, laughing as Emily reached for an empty flute. "She is practically invisible." The guests around her smiled. Not cruelly, perhaps. That would have required effort. They smiled the way people smile when someone small confirms their idea of the world. Emily heard the sentence. Her fingers paused for half a second around the stem of the glass. Then she placed it on her tray and stepped away. Invisible was useful sometimes. Invisible paid rent. Invisible let a single mother carry fear in one pocket and tips in the other without anyone asking questions she could not afford to answer. Across the deck, Nathaniel Whitaker stood near the glass railing in an ivory white blazer, his Swiss watch catching the light whenever he lifted his hand. He was 38, handsome in the clean, distant way money teaches men to be handsome, with calm eyes and a smile that appeared exactly when cameras needed it. To the guests, he was Nate Whitaker, Millionaire CEO, owner of resort yachts, coastal hotels, and the evening itself. To Emily, he was a memory she had buried under clinic bills, daycare forms, and 5 years of learning how not to hope. He had not looked at her once. That should have made the night easier. It did not. At 9:15, Emily heard Lily cry through the service radio. Not loudly, just one small broken sound from below deck, followed by the young dishwasher whispering, "Miss Carter, she is asking for you." Emily's body moved before her mind did. She left the tray near the service station, hurried down the narrow stairs, and found her 4-year-old daughter sitting upright in the staff room, cheeks warm, eyes wet, clutching the tiny silver compass bracelet Emily had tried to hide beneath her sleeve. "Mommy, it is too loud," Lily whispered. Emily gathered her into her arms, pressing one hand to her forehead. "I know, sweetheart. I know. I am taking you somewhere quiet." But the lower corridor was crowded with caterers, rolling carts, and crew members preparing the next course. Emily turned toward the upper passage, intending only to cross behind the deck and reach a small sheltered seating area near the bow. She did not know Nate had just raised his champagne for the night's announcement. She did not know the guests had gone silent. She stepped into the light carrying Lily against her shoulder, the wine-red ribbon shifting in the river wind. Nate turned because a child coughed softly behind him. His glass stopped halfway to his mouth. First he saw the waitress everyone had failed to see. Then he saw the sleeping girl in her arms. Then he saw the silver compass bracelet on the child's wrist, the same charm he had given away in Newport during a rainstorm he thought belonged to another life. The music continued for 2 more notes. Then even the violin seemed to understand. Nate lowered his glass slowly. Emily froze beneath the eyes of the entire deck. Lily opened her tired blue eyes, looked straight at the millionaire in the ivory blazer, and whispered, "Mommy, is that the man from your picture?" For one long moment, no one on the yacht seemed to know where to look. Not at the millionaire with the frozen champagne glass. Not at the waitress holding a feverish child. Not at the little silver compass bracelet catching the deck lights, as if it had been waiting years to be seen. Emily's first instinct was to turn away, to apologize, to disappear again. But Lily's cheek rested hot against her shoulder, and that small weight kept her standing. Nate Whitaker lowered his glass until it hung at his side. The smile he had worn for investors was gone now, leaving behind something rawer and far less practiced. His eyes moved from Lily's face to the bracelet, then to Emily's wine-red ribbon. A memory stirred. Newport. Rain tapping against a restaurant window. A young waitress laughing softly when the lights flickered out. A silver compass charm placed in her palm because he had said everyone needed something to help them find their way home. He had not thought of that night in years. Or maybe he had refused to. Where did she get that? He asked. His voice was low, but the entire deck heard it. Emily adjusted Lily higher in her arms. It was given to me. By whom? She looked at him then. Really looked. Not as a server to a guest. Not as an employee to a man whose name was printed on the yacht. As a woman who had carried a truth long enough to know it could not be softened for his comfort. By you. A whisper passed through the crowd like wind across water. The woman who had called Emily invisible raised one hand to her mouth. Nate did not move. The champagne in his glass trembled slightly, though his hand stayed controlled. That is impossible, he said. Emily's expression did not harden. It settled. There was a difference. No, she said. It is inconvenient. The word struck him harder than anger would have. A man near the rail cleared his throat. Someone else murmured about privacy. Nate's assistant, Daniel Price, appeared at his side with the smooth urgency of a person trained to protect powerful men from public moments. Mr. Whitaker, we should step inside. Nate did not answer him. His eyes remained on Lily. The little girl blinked slowly, tired and confused by all the staring. Mommy, she whispered, can we go home? Emily's arms tightened around her. Soon, baby. That word, baby, changed the air around Nate. It was ordinary, tender, unavailable to him in a way that made his chest feel suddenly empty. How old is she? He asked. Emily hesitated, not because she feared the answer, but because speaking it aloud would measure everything he had missed. 4. Nate looked down as if the deck had shifted beneath him. For years. For birthdays. For winters. For summers. A whole child old enough to ask questions and remember who answered them. Why are you here tonight? His voice had turned careful, but not kind enough yet. Emily heard the suspicion beneath the control. She had expected it. She had rehearsed for it in clinic waiting rooms and on subway rides home after midnight. Because your company hired the catering team, she said. Because my sitter canceled 2 hours before my shift. Because my daughter has a fever and I could not leave her alone. And because I was trying to get through one night without anyone noticing either of us. Nate's jaw tightened. You expect me to believe this is coincidence? Emily's eyes flicked to the champagne glass, then back to his face. I stopped expecting anything from you a long time ago. The silence deepened. Daniel stepped in gently. Miss, perhaps we can discuss this somewhere private. Emily looked at him, then at the guests, then at the woman who had laughed earlier. She could feel every eye on her uniform, her shoes, the child in her arms, as if poverty were a stain that had walked into good lighting. Private would have been 5 years ago, she said softly. When I tried to reach him, Nate's face changed, just slightly. Enough for Emily to know that part of him had heard the crack in the story. Tried how? He asked. Emily shifted Lily to one arm and reached into the pocket of her apron. She pulled out a folded medical envelope, worn at the edges from being carried too often. Letters, phone calls, office visits, emails. She held the envelope out. But tonight, I am not here to argue about the past. Lily needs family medical information for her doctor. That is all. Nate stared at the envelope as if it were a document from another universe. He did not take it right away. The old version of him wanted witnesses gone, questions contained, consequences calculated. But the little girl coughed once against Emily's shoulder, and every strategy in his mind went quiet. He set the champagne glass on the nearest table without looking at it. Then he reached for the envelope. Their fingers did not touch. Emily made sure of that. When he took it, the silver compass on Lily's wrist turned toward the light. For the first time that night, Nate Whitaker looked less like a man who owned the yacht and more like a man who had just realized he had been lost on it. Nate did not open the envelope on the deck. He looked at Lily's tired face, at Emily's steady arms, and then at the crowd pretending not to stare. The yacht lights suddenly felt too bright, the music too polished, the champagne tower too fragile. Forward lounge, he said to Daniel, his voice low and controlled. Clear it. Daniel moved immediately. Within seconds, staff opened the glass doors near the bow, guiding 2 investors and a woman in silver out of the private lounge with polite smiles that fooled no one. Emily did not move until Nate stepped aside and left the path open. Not in front of her, not behind her, beside her, but with space between them, as if even his body had begun to understand that authority would not help him here. Lily's head rested against Emily's shoulder, her small fingers curled around the compass bracelet. As they crossed the deck, the whispers followed them. The invisible waitress was visible now, painfully visible. Every person who had ignored her shoes, her name, her quiet hands, now watched as if she had become the only story on the yacht. Emily kept her chin level. She had learned long ago that humiliation only worked when you agreed to carry it. Inside the lounge, the air was warmer and smelled faintly of cedar, citrus, and expensive flowers. Nate closed the door, and the noise from the deck became a muffled blur. Daniel stood near the laptop station, ready but silent. Emily sat on the edge of a cream leather sofa and adjusted Lily across her lap. The child was awake now, blinking slowly at the room. "Mommy, are we in trouble?" she asked. Emily brushed a damp strand of hair from her forehead. "No, sweetheart. You did nothing wrong." Nate flinched at the answer. Not because it was directed at him, because it should not have needed to be said. He opened the medical envelope with careful hands. The papers inside were organized, clipped, and marked with sticky notes in Emily's handwriting. Pediatric allergy history, cardiology referral, genetic risk questionnaire, request for paternal family information. Nate read the clinic name in Queens. Then Lily's full name. Lily Grace Carter. No father listed. The blank space beside that line seemed louder than anything anyone had said on deck. "What does she need?" he asked. Emily's voice stayed soft. "The doctors found a mild rhythm irregularity during a checkup after an allergic reaction. They believe it is manageable, but they want family history before deciding the long-term plan." Nate looked up. "Is she in danger?" "Not tonight," Emily said. "But she needs answers. I could give them everything from my side. Nothing from yours." The word yours sat between them like an unpaid debt. Nate turned another page. "My father had an arrhythmia in his 50s, he said slowly. "My grandmother had a valve procedure. My younger cousin takes medication for an irregular heartbeat." Emily closed her eyes for half a second. Not relief exactly. Something thinner. Something that had been stretched too long. That is what the doctor needed to know. Nate stared at the forms. "You said you tried to reach me." Emily nodded. "Yes. When? Before Lily was born. After she was born. Again when she turned 1. Daniel shifted near the laptop. Nate heard it. A small movement. A guilty one, or maybe only nervous. He turned. "Search the archives." Daniel's face tightened. "Mr. Whitaker, tonight may not be the best time to review old records." Nate's eyes did not leave him. "Search them." Daniel opened the laptop and began typing. The room filled with the quiet sound of keys, Lily's breathing, and the distant pulse of music from the deck. Emily looked at the glass wall where the guests appeared as blurred shapes beyond the reflection. "You do not have to do this in front of me," she said. Nate looked at her. "I think I do." Daniel stopped typing. His face had changed. "There are archived emails," he said. Nate stepped closer. "Read them." Daniel swallowed. First subject line. "Please tell Nate Whitaker this concerns our child." Emily looked down at Lily. Second subject line. Daniel continued, quieter now. "I am not asking for money. I am asking for 5 minutes." Nate went still. The old room around him seemed to disappear. All that remained was the woman with the wine-red ribbon, the feverish little girl in her lap, and the unbearable fact that 5 minutes had once stood between him and 4 years of fatherhood. The words stayed on the laptop screen after Daniel finished reading them. Black letters on a white background, simple enough for anyone to understand and heavy enough to change the room. Nate stared at the second subject line until it blurred. "I am not asking for money. I am asking for 5 minutes." 5 minutes. He had wasted more than that choosing wines for investors, approving marble samples for hotel lobbies, listening to consultants explain how the right photograph could make loneliness look like luxury. 5 minutes had once been all Emily asked for, and somehow the doors of his life had been guarded so well that the truth never reached him. Who routed them? Nate asked. Daniel did not answer quickly enough. Emily heard the delay and looked up. Lily shifted on her lap, warm and drowsy, one small hand still resting near the compass bracelet. "Daniel," Nate said, quieter this time. "Who routed them away from me?" Daniel lowered his eyes to the screen. The account was managed by Marissa Vale. The name tightened the air. Marissa Vale had been Nate's image advisor during the years when every magazine called him the most eligible man in New York, when his company was expanding faster than his heart could keep up, when polished interviews mattered more than private consequences. There are notes attached, Daniel said. Nate's jaw set. Read them. Daniel hesitated. Mr. Whitaker. Read them. Daniel's voice dropped. Do not escalate. Possible financial motive. Maintain distance. No response recommended. Emily did not react. That was worse than tears. She had clearly already lived through the insult so many times that hearing it aloud could no longer surprise her. Nate turned toward her, but she was looking only at Lily, smoothing the child's sleeve, protecting her from words she was too young to understand and too central to escape. I never saw these, Nate said. Emily's hand paused. I know. The answer caught him off guard. He expected accusation. He deserved it. But Emily's voice carried something colder than blame. It carried exhaustion. You know, he asked. I figured it out after the third try. Someone was stopping me before I reached you. Then why did you stop? Emily looked at him then, and for the first time, the calm in her face cracked just enough to show what it had cost her to keep standing. Because I had a baby. Because I had rent. Because I had clinic forms and night shifts and a daughter who needed bedtime stories more than she needed a mother begging outside an office tower. Nate looked down. The room was full of expensive things, but none of them could protect him from that sentence. Outside the lounge, a woman laughed too loudly on the deck, then seemed to remember herself and went quiet. Daniel's phone buzzed. He checked it, then looked uncomfortable. Marissa is on board tonight. She came with the Stanton group. Nate's eyes lifted. Bring her here. Emily stood so quickly Lily stirred. No, Nate turned toward her. She held Lily closer, not dramatically, but with the steady authority of a mother who had learned how fast adult pride could fill a room. My daughter is sick and tired. She does not need to listen while someone explains why she was inconvenient. The sentence landed cleanly. Nate looked at Lily, her flushed cheeks, her half-closed eyes, the tiny bracelet that had carried more truth than his entire staff. Then he nodded. You are right. Daniel looked at him, surprised by the speed of the surrender. Nate did not notice. Take Miss Carter and Lily to the quiet cabin near the stern. Get water, a blanket, and whatever she needs. No guests. No cameras. No questions. Emily did not move. I am not leaving her with anyone. I was not asking you to. The answer was immediate. For the first time that night, Emily believed one sentence from him without needing proof. She gathered the medical envelope, but Nate reached for the laptop. Leave the emails open, he said to Daniel. Then, to Emily, softer. I am going to handle Marissa. Not for the guests. Not for the company. For the record. Emily looked at him across the lounge, across 4 years, across all the doors that had closed before she could even knock properly. The record will not tuck her in at night, she said. Nate absorbed it. No defense. No polished reply. No, he said. But maybe it can stop another door from closing on her. Emily carried Lily toward the hallway. At the threshold, Lily opened her eyes and looked back at Nate. Are you the man from the picture? She whispered. Nate's breath caught. Emily froze, but did not answer for him. Nate stepped closer, stopping several feet away so he would not crowd them. I think I am, he said carefully. And I am very sorry I was not there when the picture became a person. Lily did not understand all of it, but she understood his voice. She rested her cheek back on Emily's shoulder. Emily turned away before Nate could see what that sentence had done to her eyes. Marissa Vale entered the forward lounge as if she were stepping into a room she had already won. Her silver dress caught the warm cabin light. Her hair was pinned perfectly, and her smile carried the smooth confidence of someone who had spent years turning other people's messes into elegant statements. Nate, she said, glancing once at Daniel and then at the open laptop. I heard there was some confusion on deck. I hope you are not letting an emotional interruption ruin a very important evening. Nate stood beside the table with the champagne untouched behind him and the medical envelope open near his hand. Through the glass wall, the party continued in uneasy fragments, guests shifting under the weight of gossip they were too polite to name out loud. Emily Carter, Nate said. You remember her. Marissa's smile stayed in place, but her eyes sharpened. Should I? You labeled her a financial risk. She gave a quiet sigh, almost disappointed. Over the years, many women tried to reach you. Some wanted attention. Some wanted money. Some wanted a story they could sell. My job was to protect you from distractions. Nate looked at the laptop screen again. The subject lines waited there, patient and terrible. She wrote that it concerned our child. Anyone can write that. She wrote that she was not asking for money. People say what sounds useful. She came to the tower pregnant. Marissa's silence lasted 1 second too long. That was the answer. Nate stepped back from the table, not because he needed distance from her, but because he needed to see clearly the kind of loyalty he had once mistaken for wisdom. You knew? Marissa folded her hands in front of her. I knew there was a possibility that a young waitress from Newport could complicate your life at the worst possible time. Her name is Emily, and your name was on a company that thousands of people depended on. Your father had just died. The board was watching every move you made. The press had turned your personal life into a product. I made a judgment call. Nate's voice stayed low. You erased my daughter. The words made Daniel look away. Marissa's face tightened. I managed a threat. A child is not a threat. A scandal is. The room went still. Even Marissa seemed to hear how the sentence sounded once it no longer had strategy wrapped around it. Nate looked toward the hallway where Emily had carried Lily, away from lights, away from whispers, away from a room full of adults who had spoken about her life as if it were a public relations problem. You will leave this yacht at the marina, he said. Tonight. Marissa blinked. Do not be dramatic. Tomorrow morning, Daniel will deliver the archive to legal review. Every message, every note, every instruction, nothing will be deleted. Her composure cracked. If you do this publicly, you damage the acquisition. The acquisition can wait. The Stanton Group will not understand that. Nate finally looked back at her. Then they are free to leave. Marissa stared at him as if she were seeing a stranger. Perhaps she was. The man who had once allowed advisors to arrange his life like furniture had disappeared somewhere between a child's question and a medical envelope. You are making a mistake, she said. Nate picked up the champagne flute, studied the fading bubbles, and set it down again without drinking. No, he said. I am finally looking at one. Daniel opened the lounge door for Marissa. For a moment, she seemed ready to say something sharper, something that would restore the old order. But there was no old order left. She walked out past the glass, past the guests, past the champagne tower that suddenly looked less like celebration and more like decoration around a lie. Nate remained in the lounge until the door closed. Then he turned to Daniel. Prepare a statement. Private family matter. No names. No images of Lily. No mention of her medical records. Daniel nodded. And the announcement? Nate looked out at the deck, where people still waited for him to return as the man they understood. Cancelled. A few minutes later, he walked down the narrow hallway to the quiet cabin near the stern. Emily sat beside Lily, who was wrapped in a cream blanket with a glass of water on the table and her bracelet resting against her small wrist. The child was calmer now, her eyes heavy. Emily looked up when Nate entered, and he stopped at the doorway, asking permission without words. She gave a small nod. He stepped inside. Not too close. Not yet. Marissa is leaving the yacht, he said. Emily absorbed that quietly. That does not give Lily back for years. I know. It does not give me back the nights I thought maybe I had not tried hard enough. Nate's face changed, not dramatically, but honestly. You tried. I saw the emails. Emily looked down at her daughter. Emails are easy to see after someone finally opens them. There was no cruelty in it. Only truth. Nate sat in the chair across from them, his ivory blazer bright under the soft cabin light, suddenly less like armor and more like something he did not know how to wear. The clinic, he said. When is the appointment? Tomorrow morning. 9 o'clock. Queens. I will be there. Emily's eyes lifted. No cameras. No cameras. No lawyers speaking over doctors. No lawyers. No promises you cannot keep. Nate looked at Lily, then at Emily, and for the first time that night, he understood that money could make arrangements, but it could not become trust. Then I will make only one, he said. I will be there at 9 o'clock. Lily stirred beneath the blanket. Mommy, she whispered, is the man still here? Emily touched her hair. Yes, sweetheart. Lily opened her eyes and looked at Nate. Are you coming to the doctor? Nate leaned forward just enough for her to hear him clearly. Yes. Lily thought about that, then nodded with the serious grace of a child who had decided to allow tomorrow one small chance. Do not be late, she said. Nate lowered his head. I will not. Outside, the yacht moved toward the marina through dark water and city light. Upstairs, the party had nothing left to celebrate. Inside the quiet cabin, Emily held her daughter. Nate held his silence. and the night began changing from spectacle into responsibility. The yacht reached the marina just before midnight, gliding into its slip with a softness that made the whole evening feel even stranger. A night that had begun with champagne, string music, and polished speeches ended under yellow dock lights, with crew members lowering ropes in silence and guests stepping off more quietly than they had arrived. No one seemed eager to laugh now. No one called Emily invisible. They watched her from a distance as she walked down the narrow hallway with Lily asleep against her shoulder, the cream blanket tucked around the child's small body. Nate followed several steps behind, close enough to help if she asked, far enough to understand she had not. Daniel had arranged for the staff exit to remain clear, with no photographers, no curious guests, and no whispered questions dressed as concern. At the bottom of the ramp, the cold air off the Hudson brushed against Emily's face, and she breathed in as if the night had finally loosened its grip on her chest. Lily stirred. "Are we home?" she murmured. "Not yet," Emily whispered. "Soon." Nate stood beside the ramp, his ivory blazer open now, his champagne speech forgotten somewhere on the deck behind him. He looked at the parking lot, at the catering vans, at the line of black cars waiting for guests who had never wondered how the people serving them got home. "May I have a driver take you?" he asked. Emily did not turn right away. "We came with the catering van. Then I can walk you there." She looked at him. The old Nate would have said it like a decision. This Nate said it like a request. After a moment, she nodded. They crossed the marina lot under quiet lights, the city glowing beyond the fence. Emily carried Lily with the practiced strength of a mother who had carried groceries, laundry, medical folders, and sleeping children up too many apartment stairs. Nate saw the way she shifted Lily's weight without waking her. He saw the worn black flats, the thin coat over her waitress blouse, the wine-red ribbon still tied neatly in her hair after a night that would have unraveled anyone else. "You should not have had to do any of this alone," he said. Emily kept walking. "Should" is a soft word. It does not change rent. He accepted that. They reached the white catering van near the service gate. Emily opened the side door with one hand, laid Lily carefully across the back seat, and buckled her in beneath the blanket. The little girl's bracelet slid against her wrist, the silver compass catching one last piece of marina light. Nate stared at it, then looked away because the ache in his chest felt too large for public air. Emily closed the door gently. "The appointment is at 9, she said. "Dr. Elaine Porter, Queen's Family Heart Clinic. I will be there. Do not send Daniel instead." "I will not. Do not arrive with a camera team." "I would never." Emily's eyes held his. "The man you were before tonight might have." That was the kind of truth that did not need volume. Nate looked down at his Swiss watch. The second hand moved perfectly, as if time had not just betrayed him. He unclasped it and held it in his palm. "The man I was before tonight missed 4 years, he said. "He does not get to speak for tomorrow." Emily studied him, searching for performance. She found shame instead. Real shame. Quiet shame. The kind that did not ask to be comforted. "Lily may ask questions," she said. "Answer only what you can answer honestly." "I will." "She may like you quickly. That does not mean you have earned it." "I know. And if you disappear after this, I will not explain you gently." Nate nodded. "Do not." For the first time, Emily looked almost surprised. He stepped closer, then stopped before he came too near. "I do not want to buy my way into her life," he said. "I want to learn where the door is." Emily's hand rested on the van handle. Behind the glass, Lily slept with her cheek turned toward the seat, small and fever-warm, and unaware that the adults outside were trying to rebuild the world around her without making it shake. "The door is tomorrow at 9, Emily said. Nate put one hand over his heart, not grandly, not for show. "Tomorrow at 9. She got into the driver's seat, started the engine, and pulled away from the marina. Nate stood beneath the yellow light until the van disappeared into traffic. Only then did he look back at the yacht, its windows glowing like nothing had changed. But everything had. Somewhere between the champagne and the service gate, a man who owned a fleet had learned that the most important journey of his life would begin in a clinic waiting room in Queens. At 8:46 the next morning, Nate Whitaker stood outside Queen's Family Heart Clinic with no assistant, no driver waiting at the curb, and no watch on his wrist. The building was not impressive. Red brick, 3 floors, a pharmacy on one side and a laundromat on the other. Buses groaned at the stop nearby. A delivery truck blocked half the lane, while two men unloaded bread crates into a corner deli. It was the kind of place Nate's former life would have passed in tinted glass, noticing only traffic. That morning, he noticed everything. The mother folding a stroller with one hand, the old man counting pills in a paper bag, the little girl in a pink coat holding a stuffed rabbit by one ear. Ordinary lives, moving with quiet urgency, no headlines, no champagne, no one clapping when they made it through another day. He stepped inside at 8:53. The waiting room smelled faintly of hand sanitizer and coffee. Alphabet posters lined one wall. A cartoon giraffe measured children's height near the hallway, though the giraffe looked tired from years of tape and fingerprints. Emily sat in the third chair from the window, Lily curled against her side in a blue cardigan, cheeks less flushed than the night before. Emily's wine-red ribbon was tied neatly at the back of her hair. She looked up when the door opened. Her face did not soften. Not exactly. But she looked at the clock before she looked at him again. "You are early," she said. Nate stopped a few feet away. 7 minutes. Lily lifted her head. "That counts." "I was hoping it would," Nate said. Emily watched him for signs of the man from the yacht. The performance. The impatience. The invisible machinery of wealth arriving before him. But he had come alone in dark slacks, a pale blue shirt, and the ivory blazer folded over his arm instead of worn like armor. At the reception desk, he gave his name quietly and took the clipboard the nurse offered. "Family medical history," she said. Nate looked at Emily. "May I sit near you while I fill this out?" That question did more than any apology had done so far. It did not heal. It did not erase. But it placed the choice where it belonged. Emily nodded toward the chair 1 seat away. "There is fine." He sat and began writing. "Father, arrhythmia diagnosed at 52. Grandmother, valve procedure. Cousin, rhythm medication since adolescence. No sudden cardiac events known." Lily leaned over slightly, watching his pen move. "You write slow." Nate glanced at her. "I am trying to write correctly. Mommy writes fast. Your mother has had more practice doing everything." Emily looked down at her hands. She did not thank him for noticing. She was not ready to reward him for arriving at facts. A door opened, and Dr. Elaine Porter called Lily's name. The exam room was small, bright, and practical. Lily sat on the paper-covered table while Emily stood close enough for her daughter to touch her sleeve. Nate remained near the wall until Dr. Porter invited him forward to answer family questions. He spoke carefully. He did not interrupt Emily. He did not claim certainty where he had none. When the doctor explained that Lily's condition appeared manageable with monitoring and a few precautions, Emily closed her eyes for one brief second. Relief did not make her weak. It made her look young, and that hurt Nate more than he expected. Lily looked at him while the doctor listened to her heartbeat. "Are you scared?" she asked. Nate nearly said no. The old answer. The easy lie. Instead, he lowered himself beside the exam table. "Yes," he said. "A little." Lily considered him with serious blue eyes. "Mommy gets scared too, but she still does things." Nate looked at Emily, who was suddenly very interested in the clinic poster about healthy snacks. "That is because your mother is brave," he said. Lily nodded, as if he had finally caught up. After the appointment, they stepped onto the sidewalk with a printed care plan and a follow-up date. Traffic moved around them. The city did not know their lives had changed. Nate held the folder, but did not keep it. He offered it to Emily. "You should have the original." Emily accepted it. "I already made copies." "Of course you did." A tiny smile almost reached her mouth, then vanished before it became permission. Lily tugged Nate's sleeve. "Are you coming again?" Nate looked to Emily first. She noticed. Lily noticed too. "If your mother says it is all right," he said. Emily breathed in slowly. The door was not open, but it was no longer locked. "The follow-up is in 3 weeks," she said. "You can come." Nate nodded once, as if receiving a privilege, not a right. Lily reached into her pocket and pulled out a small silver star sticker from the clinic sheet. She pressed it onto the inside of his bare wrist. "So you remember the doctor place," she said. Nate looked at the sticker where his watch used to be. Small. Crooked. Perfect. "I will remember," he said. Emily watched him hold his wrist carefully, as if the sticker were something sacred. For the first time, she allowed herself to believe that maybe the man who had missed the beginning could still learn how to show up for the next page. 3 weeks can be a lifetime when a child is waiting to see if a promise has legs. Lily marked the days on a paper calendar Emily taped to the refrigerator in their Queens apartment. using a purple crayon for clinic days and a yellow one for ordinary days that still mattered. Nate did not call too often. He did not send gifts so large they made the apartment feel smaller. He did not try to replace the life Emily had built. He sent one message after the appointment to ask if Lily's fever had stayed down, then another 2 days later to ask whether the new medication had upset her stomach. When Emily answered, he replied with thank you, not instructions. That surprised her more than she wanted to admit. On the morning of the follow-up, Nate was already seated in the clinic waiting room when they arrived. The Silver Star sticker no longer on his wrist, but carefully pressed inside the cover of a small notebook he had brought for Lily's medical notes. Lily spotted it immediately. You kept it. Nate looked up from the notebook. You told me to remember. Lily smiled, then hid half of it against Emily's coat. Dr. Porter's follow-up was brief and hopeful. Lily's numbers looked better. The plan was working. There would be more visits, more careful days, more forms, but no panic in the doctor's voice. Emily listened with her shoulders lowering 1 inch at a time. Nate listened too, writing only what the doctor said and asking questions only after Emily had finished hers. Outside the clinic, Lily skipped 3 squares of sidewalk and declared that the day deserved pancakes. Emily almost said no out of habit. Too much time, too much money, too much everything. Nate did not offer to buy the restaurant. He only said, there is a diner on the corner. I hear pancakes are important after brave appointments. Emily looked at him. 1 breakfast, she said. 1 breakfast, he agreed. The diner smelled like coffee, butter, and syrup. A waitress with gray hair led them to a booth near the window. Lily sat between them at first, then changed her mind and slid beside Emily, as if reminding everyone where home still was. Nate did not look hurt. He opened the children's menu and let Lily explain why chocolate chip pancakes were medically better than plain ones. Emily watched him listen. Really listen. Not waiting for his turn. Not performing patience. Learning her daughter in small bites. Halfway through breakfast, a man from a nearby table recognized Nate and started to raise his phone. Nate saw Emily's body go still. He turned his head and spoke before the phone came up fully. Please do not photograph my family. The word family startled everyone at the table, including him. The man lowered the phone with an embarrassed nod. Lily kept pouring syrup, unaware that the air had changed. Emily looked at Nate, not angry, but careful. That word is not a shortcut, she said quietly. Nate nodded. I know. It is a responsibility. I know that too. Lily looked up. What word? Emily wiped syrup from the corner of her mouth. Pancakes. Lily accepted this and returned to her plate. Nate almost smiled, but there was something shining behind it. After breakfast, they walked to the subway entrance. Nate offered no car. No pressure. No plan disguised as kindness. At the stairs, Lily took his hand for exactly 6 steps, then let go and ran back to Emily. It was nothing. It was everything. Emily noticed Nate looking at his empty hand afterward, not with disappointment, but with gratitude for the 6 steps he had been given. That evening, after Lily fell asleep with her bracelet on the nightstand, Emily found a message on her phone. Not long, not polished. Thank you for allowing today to happen at her pace. Emily read it twice. Then she set the phone down without answering. Trust was not a door she intended to open because of 1 good breakfast. But for the first time in years, she did not lock it before going to bed. 1 month after the night on the yacht, Lily stood on a tiny stage in her preschool auditorium wearing a yellow paper crown, 1 silver ballet flat, and 1 pink sneaker because she had changed her mind halfway through getting dressed. Emily sat near the aisle in the 3rd row, her wine-red ribbon tied neatly in her hair, her hands folded around the program as if paper could hold back emotion. The room smelled like construction paper, crayons, and cafeteria cookies. Parents whispered. Grandparents waved. Small children forgot their places and smiled at the wrong time. It was ordinary. It was perfect. At 5 minutes before the show began, the back door opened quietly. Nate stepped in alone, wearing a navy jacket and dark jeans. No watch, no entourage, no camera-ready entrance. He stood at the back until Emily turned and saw him. He lifted 1 hand slightly, asking without words. Emily looked at the empty seat beside her. Then, after a pause just long enough to keep the truth honest, she nodded. Nate sat down carefully, as if the folding chair were more important than any seat he had ever been offered. She is nervous, Emily whispered. So am I, Nate whispered back. Emily almost smiled. On stage, Lily searched the audience until she found them. First Emily, then Nate. Her eyes widened, and her paper crown slipped crooked on her head. Nate did not wave big. He did not draw attention. He only placed one hand over his heart, the same place where she had once told him not to be late. Lily smiled, small and bright, then turned back to her teacher. The performance was messy, sweet, and impossible to measure. A song about rainbows began too high. A cardboard moon fell over and was rescued by a boy in a star costume. Lily forgot 2 lines, looked down at Emily, then at Nate, and somehow remembered the last one. When the song ended, Nate clapped with everyone else, but his eyes stayed on his daughter as if applause were not enough to hold what he felt. Afterward, in the classroom, Lily dragged them toward a wall of drawings. "This one is mine," she said proudly. It showed 3 stick figures under a large purple sun. One had yellow hair and a red ribbon. One wore a white jacket. One was small, with a silver bracelet drawn as a gray circle. Above them, in careful, uneven letters, she had written, "My people." Emily stared at the paper. Nate did too. Neither spoke at first. Lily tugged Nate's sleeve. "Do you like it?" Nate crouched beside her. "I think it is beautiful." Lily narrowed her eyes. "You have to say that because you are grown up." "No," he said softly. "I am saying it because it is true." Emily looked at him then, not as the man who had missed 4 years, not as the millionaire on a yacht, not even as someone fully forgiven, but as someone who had come to a small school auditorium, sat in the back, clapped at the right time, and let a child decide what closeness meant. On the walk outside, Lily ran ahead to show her teacher the silver compass bracelet, leaving Emily and Nate beneath the awning while a light rain began to fall. Newport had rained too, years ago, when everything began and then disappeared into silence. Nate noticed the memory cross Emily's face. "I cannot change what happened," he said. "I know," she replied, "but you can choose what happens next." He nodded. At her pace. Emily looked through the classroom window where Lily was laughing with another child, paper crown still crooked, cheeks warm with happiness. "At her pace," she said. Then, after a long moment, she added, "and with the truth." Nate looked at the rain touching the sidewalk, at the woman with the wine-red ribbon, at the daughter who had turned a millionaire's life into something smaller, harder, and infinitely more meaningful. "With the truth," he said. Emily did not take his hand. She did not need to. Forgiveness, if it came, would come slowly, in doctor appointments, school shows, answered messages, and mornings when he arrived without being reminded. But when Lily ran back and reached for both of them, Emily let her daughter's small hands connect what the adults were still learning how to build. The woman they called invisible had not become visible because a rich man finally saw her. She had always been visible to the child she carried, to the truth she protected, and to the quiet dignity no room full of strangers could erase. Some people are not invisible. They are simply waiting for the world to become honest enough to see them.